Section 3 of Early Greek Philosophy by Alfred William Benn. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain, read by Pamela Nagami. Chapter 1. The School of Miletus, Part 3. 6. Anaximander. I have said that Thales probably learned what astronomy he knew from Babylon, and that his view of the relation between earth and water was Semitic. Now it is certain that the philosopher was not of pure Greek race, and one rather doubtful pedigree even makes him belong to a Phoenician, that is to say, a Semitic family. There seems to be very insufficient grounds for the belief, but were it true, philosophy would remain a product of European, not of Asiatic culture, while the fertilizing stimulus that first started Greek thought seems to have come not from any Semitic source, but from Egypt. At any rate, the beginnings of speculation at Miletus coincide with the permanent establishment of a Milesian colony at Naucratis in the Delta, a concession due to the liberality of the very enlightened pharaoh Amasis. With Anaximander, the pupil of Thales, and like him a Milesian, born 610 B.C., we already stand on more solid ground. This marvellous thinker may be called the second founder of philosophy, for he first gave it literary expression in a book of which some fragments still survive. According to him, the primary substance whence all things arise is not water, nor indeed any form of matter known to us, but an infinite something without limit in space or time. Out of this all the worlds are evolved by a necessary process of succession, and into it they return when their fated term of existence is completed. Only so, as Anaximander thinks, can the eternal laws of justice be fulfilled. No single combination of material conditions among the boundless possibilities of existence has a right to continue forever, blocking the way that others also are waiting to traverse in their turn. Here we have the cardinal Greek virtue of sophrosony, the Ionian rule of self-limitation, raised to the dignity of a universal law determining the life and death of things in themselves. There is no room in Anaximander's system for the immortal gods of Homer. Each world in the infinite succession of worlds is a god indeed, but a god destined to perish like ourselves. Like Thales, Anaximander has a place in the history of science no less than in the history of philosophy, perhaps even a greater place. We are told that he made the first map, and that he conceived the earth as hanging unsupported in space, although he did not conceive it as a globe, but as a cylinder. This, however, marks a considerable advance on his master's view of the earth as a flat disk floating on the water. According to him, the heavenly bodies are vast revolving hoops of fire, pierced with circular apertures, which give us the notion of them as luminous disks, and he anticipated the nebular hypothesis so far as to teach that these hoops were evolved out of the formless infinite by a process of gradual differentiation. Evolution was an idea familiar to all the early Greek philosophers. It presents indeed no difficulties to men at a much more primitive stage of thought than theirs. We ourselves have grown up gradually from very small beginnings, and the natural thing is to conceive the world as having been developed in the same fashion. Moreover, primitive folk are accustomed to look on the transformation of men into animals or plants, and of animals or plants into men, as quite an ordinary occurrence. It is not therefore surprising to find Anaximander saying that land animals were originally developed from aquatic or fish-like animals, and that man was born from animals of a different species. The remarkable thing is the reason he gives for this theory. While other animals quickly find food for themselves, man alone requires a prolonged period of suckling. Hence, had he been originally such as he is now, he could never have survived. 7. Anaximenes. We shall see presently what causes brought the genuinely scientific movement of the Milesian school to an end. Before expiring, it produced one more great representative in Anaximenes, the successor of Anaximander. With less speculative daring, he seems to show a closer observation of fact. For him also there is a primal substance of infinite extent, in which and from which all finite things have their being. That elementary substance is air, the air that we breathe, our very life. To use his own words, that which is our soul and constitutive principle also holds the universe together. A philosopher who so expressed himself now, or indeed at any time after Plato, would be properly called a materialist. But we can hardly apply the name to Anaximenes. Materialism and spiritualism are a correlated couple. Each term first becomes intelligible as the antithesis and contradiction of the other. We have better grounds for crediting Anaximenes with what would now be called a mechanical theory of nature, as distinguished from what, by another modernism, may be described as the specific energies or occult qualities of his predecessor. Anaximander taught that such antithetical pairs as wet and dry, hot and cold, etc., were separated out or differentiated from the homogeneous infinite, where they had previously existed in a latent state. To Anaximenes, on the other hand, heat and cold, like the solid, liquid, and gaseous states of matter, were all merely so many products of rarefaction and condensation. Air squeezed together becomes cloudy vapour. Under additional pressure, vapour turned to rain, and rain by the same process to vegetable and animal substances, which ultimately pass into air again. Observing with perfect accuracy that heat and cold are somehow connected with dilatation and compression, this early precursor of Bacon unfortunately reversed the real relation by supposing that air is chilled by being condensed and warmed by being expanded, and that is why, says Anaximenes, we press our lips together when we want to blow cold, and open them when we want to blow hot. In studying the errors of such a man, we must remember that to ask questions and answer them wrongly helps progress incomparably more than not to ask them at all. Good care is taken, says a German proverb, that the trees shall not grow into the sky. Milesian philosophy, with its splendid promise of positive knowledge, perished after the third generation, first choked by rank undergrowths of superstition, then uprooted by earthquake and storm. But the same causes that put an end to speculation in one part of Hellas favoured its rise and propagation from new centres of intelligence elsewhere. It was just this multiplication of intellectual centres, leading to the cross-fertilization of mental growths, that gave the Greek genius such an extraordinary productivity, a productivity of which the world's history affords no second example. End of section 3.